welcome. I hope that this all works out fine. It's also a little bit of an experiment part of the journey that we are taking on as Team Houston. So this afternoon, we're going to be sharing some of the details of the Soccer Fan Insight Guide. And why are we doing that? Well, we're doing that because you had asked, right? We had received after our first event in November request to get the presentation materials. And then we had also had promised that we would provide fan insights, so which we did at the last event. So you got a lot of insight there for those of you who were there. And for those who were not there, you're going to have that insight also today at the end of the show. I think we can call it. So basically, what I'm going to do is we're not going to cover all the 138 pages of Fan Insight, but we are going to cover the highlights. So we'll try to. I got to watch here, so because some people are still coming in. So whoever is still coming in. Thank you for joining us and welcome. So as I said, we are going to go and share with you highlights from that Fan Insight Guide, and then at the end of the show, you will be able to download it. So every now and then I look downstairs. I'm pushing a couple of buttons here just to make sure that we can do a nice show. So this was the document that we shared with you in December, and again we will make some highlights. Before we do that, I wanted to do the same thing as we did at all our events, just to make the disclaimer. Right, that Team Houston is a volunteer organization. We're a not-for-profit group. We are basically a bunch of passionate crazies, right? People who are passionate for soccer, passionate for business, and passionate for Houston. And we're doing that in order to, we're doing our events to support the Houston business and creative communities. But we are not affiliated with FIFA. We are not affiliated with the FIFA World Cup. We are not affiliated with Harris County Sports Authority, Houston First, or Energy Stadium. So with that out of the way, it's very important that you understand why we're doing this. We want to basically support the business community with insights, with awareness, so that people can plan well for all the wonderful things that are coming. And we're already in 2025. So the first year of lots of great soccer tournaments has started. 2026 will obviously a big one, and 2027 will also have another big tournament. So soccer is coming our way. There's no doubt about it. And so in terms of the guide that we are going to present, also there a little disclaimer. So you will be able to download it at the end of this session. But keep this for personal information, personal education use only. What we did, we basically gathered information from all kinds of public sources. You could do that yourself as well. If you use any of these informations in materials, please reference the sources. And we've tried to do that as well. So at each of the pages, you will see sources referenced. These are the documents that we basically gathered. There are many documents out there that talk about the soccer fan, but these we consider to be extremely valuable, and we will take you through some of the highlights of these documents. Again, you will have 138 pages of information at the end of this event. Very important, if you're new to soccer, or if you're somewhat new to soccer, or maybe if you're not new to soccer, soccer in the US is growing quite astronomically. The MLS has seen quite some growth. And if we look here to some information that we got from Navigate, a very interesting source for information, basically it grew from 2012 to 2022 from 6 million attendance to 10 million attendance. Now, those are nice numbers, but recently the MLS was able to present an even nicer number at 12.1 million. And with that 12.1 million, if you see there, you see the ranking of the MLS is now among one of the top leagues in the world. And logically, it should be, right? Because the United States is the biggest market in the world, the biggest sports market. So actually MLS should ultimately become the #1 league in the world. So it's the number two league in numbers, maybe not yet like the league that everybody would see as a soccer league, the soccer league that really crowns it all, and we'll see that in several of the slides and pieces of information, is the English Premier League, which leads ahead of the pack. Then what we can see is that there is a generational thing going on, right? So if you look at the younger generation, whether or not it's Generation Alpha, or if we see what is happening at high schools, I mean, soccer is becoming a very popular sport, but it's also because the parents have been growing up with soccer. So there is a generational component, and we'll see later also that it also has to do, obviously, uh, with the foreign-born aspect. That is what you see here, right? I mean, so the United States is a country of immigrants, and so there's a large foreign-born population. And as that population continues to be a more significant part, also soccer, which is the #1 sport in most of the countries in the world, will automatically grow with that. So the MLS, from that point of view, has nothing but a road up. The first big bump for soccer in the United States came with the first World Cup. You see some interesting statistics here, right? I mean, the first World Cup happened in '94 in the US. That basically caused a significant increase in soccer fans in the United States. It was also the kickoff of the MLS. And here we are, fast forward to now, let's say the 2022 to 2026 period, and per the projection of this agency, we're going to see a growth of another 34 million soccer fans. 34 million soccer fans, as I said at the event last month, right? I mean, that is a country or maybe multiple countries where I come from. So significant numbers. And that means if you are a business and you're looking for growth, you're looking for things that are going up, and you want to associate yourself with something, then soccer is the way to go. Here I'm showing only very quick, high level, one of the soccer fan segmentations. If you go into the documents, there are several soccer fan segmentations. I think you should pick the one that you find appropriate to you. There's not one in particular that we would, let's say, recommend, but they are, for you, can be nice tools to sort of see like, hey, okay, what comes closest to my brand or my business, and how do I use any kind of insights from that for my planning efforts. Again, information, this, by the way, is information from a For Soccer report. Very interesting report. It looks like every year, a very detailed report, lots and lots of information in there. Again, how do people get into soccer? Well, if you see the data here, it's basically primarily because of family connection. If you see the fourth item, it's born into it. So family, where you grow up, where you come from, tend to be having a big impact on your choice. It's not the only way on how you get into soccer, but it is a very important one. And we'll see that also somewhat back later in some numbers. So there are all kind of fans, right? So you have hardcore fans and casual fans, and if you start comparing between the different leagues here, so we see some of the European leagues, American leagues, and then also the MLS at the bottom. Interesting to see is that some of these leagues have very high numbers of hardcore fans. As a European, I'm not surprised to see that for the Premier League and for the Champions League. I was somewhat surprised to see that high of a number for the MLS, which is actually then apparently a very good thing if there is a very hardcore fan base. So these are names that the diehard soccer fans will probably all know. This is from the 23-24 report, so probably this year it might be a little bit different. But we're going to see in a moment the female one, and there's going to be a big difference. Here you see one American player. So that in itself is an accomplishment. Who plays at the moment in Europe. More American players are playing in Europe, so that is a positive thing for the soccer reputation. Unfortunately, they're playing in Europe and they're not playing in the US. So, but who knows, right? Um, Less popular or less well known, maybe, are these ladies. What is obviously remarkable here is that we see five from the US, and that is not a surprise because the women's soccer team in the United States has been probably the world's best female soccer team. And oh, by the way, if you didn't know, they're coming to town, if I do it off the top of my head, the 20th of February, going to play Colombia in the She Believes Cup. So if you want to see some of these stars, I don't know if these actual players are going to play, but if you want to see that team in action, it's going to happen here actually in Houston. And that is one of the many big tournaments that we are going to see here in Houston, where you can witness the best of the sport in action here in our hometown. Um, Interesting statistics around like what are the kind of international competitions, right? Because we have the national competition and we have the international competitions, we have the club competitions, and we have the nations competitions. Um, no surprise, the FIFA World Cup is the most popular tournament there is. What is obviously, as a European, very encouraging to see is that the European Championship comes in on as second, which was the tournament that happened this past summer. Very exciting tournament. Sadly, it didn't end the way I was expecting. But that's part of the game. Interesting also is to see that the Women's World Cup comes in very strong, and these are numbers for the US, so that's probably not a surprise that it comes in strong. And then if you look to the last two ones on the right, Copa America and Gold Cup, those are then very interesting for Houston. And we're going to see a lot more detail around the soccer fan in Houston later on. So the Gold Cup is going to be also played here in Houston, or at least a number of matches are going to be played, and very important, the final is going to be played in Houston. So again, a lot of, let's say, high-level soccer is coming to town. It's coming to the US first and foremost, but it's coming also specifically to Houston. And that means people visiting, that means fans visiting, that means opportunity for businesses. So one of my favorite things to do is to watch soccer at a bar, right? And so it's funny because if you go and study the 138 pages, you're going to see maybe some different pieces of information. But I'm calling it out here because we are going to see also with the European fans that a very important aspect of watching the game is to do it together with others, right? And bars and restaurants are then obviously the logical places to do. So you can see that 62% of the fans watch at least one game a month at a bar or a restaurant. So for all the bar and restaurant owners, right, I would say get ready, particularly for this summer when we have the Club World Cup. Um, and later you will see some interesting statistics in detail on Houston that will really make you think on how to prepare for watch parties and all that kind of fun stuff. Content, content, content. The world is all about content. So here you see a whole ranking of content. I mean, if you look at the numbers, I mean, is there like a real big difference between all of them? Maybe not so much. But again, this information is also just to be a teaser, right? I mean, to make you think about what are the kind of things that you can do. So if you're in the content business, well, take a look. What is it that the fans want? They want the goal highlights, so probably that is content that you would not be having access to if you are a vlogger or something like that. But there are other things that you maybe can do, and that you can look at whether or not those are possible for you. Highlights, game analysis, interviews, so all kind of types of contents. And again, the fan wants to know about the player. The fan wants to know about the game. And I think that, well, we think as Team Houston also that content creation is going to be a big opportunity because we are all living in a social media, user-generated content world, and so that's another area to pay attention to. From another report, these statistics, you can see quite some interesting statistics around the Premier League. Very impressive league in terms of its popularity. And I believe there are several places here in Houston where you can watch the league in bars, right? Again, what we talked about earlier. But the Premier League has also done a very good job in terms of, let's say, making itself visible all around the world with all kind of broadcasting deals. So this is one of those things, right? I mean, you can see this on regular television, so it's very accessible, and that has helped, obviously, the popularity of the league, and with the popularity of the league, also the sport, and some of the players, and even some of the coaches. So back for a moment to the MLS, and I'm taking this sort of like in steps as we go through different reports. So the MLS fan, I mean, this will probably not surprise everybody per se, but it's always nice to see the numbers. It's a male audience. It's a somewhat younger audience, and it's a city audience primarily. So this is for MLS numbers. And again, I think you'll have to sort of see MLS more at the national level. Once we go specifically to Houston, the picture might become a little bit different. So an interesting difference between probably Europe and the United States is what sports we watch, right? Or that we watch multiple sports, or that we maybe sometimes have multiple fan relationships. You can see here that the MLS fans are also fans of NFL and NBA. And so that is maybe in itself, I think, a very American thing in my opinion. So it might be a little bit challenging sometimes for MLS teams to compete then, right, with the NBA and the NFL. How do you say that? Relationships. So MLS games are being watched more and more. So the Apple TV deal, there are different reports on how successful that is, but obviously TV plays a very important role in the whole world of soccer. Now, the money part, right, the sponsorships are obviously very important. I think for all that we are talking about in our efforts around Team Houston, we're not basically aiming to talk to the big companies who would do the multi-million-dollar deals, right? So maybe this is not completely for everybody, but at the same time it is, because look, the sponsorship story, although this relates to MLS, can relate to all the different levels of soccer that exist. Because we have the MLS, but we also have the college leagues, and even all the way up to the soccer academies. So what happens is that sponsorships do get noticed, and you can see here the kind of sponsorships that get noticed the most. So let me just admit some more people. Welcome. And so venues, obviously, and TV graphics, those are the ones that are very, very visible that people will see. And the sponsorships are bringing or are creating relationships. And also, if you follow our post on LinkedIn, you will see that we're posting regularly about that relationship, right, between brands and soccer, and how loyal fans are against brands. And there are some brands who have done very, very well because they have basically committed themselves to the sport already for a very long time. So it's not too late to start that journey. And again, you as a company or as a brand, you can basically get into the ride at several levels for that. So then, very important is the whole Latino community. This is information that we got from a Nielsen report, and Nielsen is probably also somebody that might at some point be our guest on any of these shows, if you will. Um, but here we see some interesting numbers about the Hispanic or Latino fan, however you want to call it, right? And it is very clear that they are extremely passionate and that they are have higher levels of passion for any of the major sports. So whether or not it's MLS or any of the other ones. So very passionate crowd. And so that's also always good to take into consideration. And we've seen some of that passion in, let's say, the recent Copa America. And I am sure that once we get the Gold Cup in town, that again, passion is going to be very visible in the streets of Houston. The Hispanic sports fan is also somewhat younger. So that's also something to take into account. So in general, I mean, the Hispanic audience is also very social media oriented. So you have a very interesting combination there of factors that make it an attractive population. Because also, if they're younger, it means they're going to be longer with you if you are a brand and you're creating a relationship with certain fan bases. So then to some information that we got from a very nice YouGov study. Basically, this talks about the cup that happened this summer, but it is somewhat of a US view on how the let's say the different European countries or country fellow men are following the Euros. And so it's very clear that, let's say, the passion for that tournament is logically very high with the Europeans compared to the Americans, and particularly the Germans and the Italians are standing out here in terms of their enthusiasm. If we see the age breakdown, then it looks like the US fans that are following or have followed this tournament were slightly younger. Now, in terms of the European data, it's sort of interesting to see some of the aspects here, right? I mean, here you see it basically mapped out against how right? How will you follow the championships, right? So are you going to go to a party? Are you going to go buy merchandise? Are you going to go get a flag? I mean, how are you behaving around a tournament? And having been one of those crazies myself, although the statistics are not here, you can see is that people will do a whole bunch of things, and it looks like my dear friend Olivier and his family have gone wild, right? They do parties for more than anybody else. But I think here also you have to sort of like take all these data as sort of like numbers that give you something to think about, right? So don't think per se about the absolute numbers, but think more about what it tells you and what kind of ideas you can get from that. Because if certain things are very low, like the Italians apparently don't like to go to the fence. So okay, so there's something there. But you can do with these kind of things like you can start thinking, what do I do? Do I target any of these kind of audiences? Because let's not forget, we have the tournaments that are coming up. Lots of foreigners are going to visit our country, or the US, are going to visit our cities. But they're not all the same. Not all the visitors are the same. So keep that in mind as you think about how you want to engage with them. So live or online, with or without company, I think certain themes are returning, right? So watching these kind of tournaments tends to be, and again, speaking from experience, right? I mean, tends to be somewhat of an experience that you do with others, some more than others, but in general, everybody wants to do this kind of thing. So watch parties and activities like that are for sure going to be of high interest to the soccer fan. And this is not only true for the national teams, this is also true for the club teams. So who do you plan to watch it with? And again, this is historic information because obviously the tournament already happened. But again, you see that partners and friends, right? A social experience. It's very much a social experience. Whereas maybe the week-to-week league games might be a little bit less social, although I think they're also very social. But these ones where the nation plays are super social, right? And that's coming at us. And I would say the first iteration is then with the Gold Cup, but the real iteration is going to be next year when we are going to get the bonanza of soccer events coming to town. So speaking of that, so what you saw so far, and I went through it relatively quick, is, let's say, some highlights from the different reports that we basically found in the whole insight guide that I'm running through here. There's a whole lot more, right? So you can find whatever you need, and if there's things that you cannot find, feel free to get in touch with us, because we would love to know what, if there are particular things that you're looking for, and how can we help you find that information so you can do your specific plans. One thing that is not per se in reports or websites or data is some information that we will share here. It comes from a platform, Raskasse. And Raskas is a German company. They're helping us with some insights on soccer fans in general, right? I mean, US, but also Texas and Houston. And this is a AI-based audience intelligence platform that gathers all kind of click data around the world and has a phenomenal way of creating insights. So we asked, like, hey, I mean, can you give us a little glimpse of what you can do? And they did. So overall, they have millions and millions of profiles of soccer fans. So here you can see that just on soccer in the United States, there's about 90 million profiles. So this is click data from all kind of sources, and then we can start zooming in, right? And we can zoom in for the US, but we can do it basically for any country, and that can lead to very valuable insights. So if we zoom in, we can go to the state level, and of course, like the bigger states are the bigger soccer states, but obviously they are also the two states where there is a larger, let's say, foreign population, particularly Hispanic population, and therefore logically also a higher tendency for soccer. So those are statistics where you would say, well, yeah, I sort of know that, so I don't need some research. But here we can go even all the way up to the cities, up to the villages. So we can go and zoom in to a very great detail on where let's say the soccer fan is. And once we are at that soccer fan, we can provide a whole lot more additional insight with this beautiful platform. So we're only scratching the surface here. So what we plan to do is in coming sessions, we will also share more insights, more sort of like surprising insights, hopefully learnful insights. Here, once again, confirmed, right? I mean, Houston is an important city. Houston is a soccer city, and you'll see also on our website that we say Houston is, in our opinion, the soccer city in the United States, and several sources have given statistics for that. Now, how does then that Houston soccer city look like? Well, we can slice and dice it in many ways. One of the ways we can slice it is we can, for example, see where the soccer population is more dense and where not. And again, this is just showing pure on the basis of location, right? We can add additional variables to it and make the insight even more insightful than this. But just here you can see that soccer fans are living more on the outskirts of town. Yeah, logically, we could maybe know that. But now you have the data. Now you can zoom in. Now you can be targeted. Now you can figure out where are you going to go put maybe some advertising, or where are you going to go put a shop location, or where are you going to go plan an event, right? Or where are you going to go recruit your volunteers, right? Interesting suggestion as well. So insightful data. What I found the most insightful one, and unfortunately, I mean, there's a long list, so you can maybe not see it in detail, but when you later on download the detailed reports, you'll see the data, is that Houston is a international soccer city, right? So if we look at the list here, FC Barcelona, which has been doing quite well, and we had also the chairman of the FC Barcelona fan club on our recent event. So they are, and this is per mid-December, right? I mean, they're clearly on top together with Real Madrid. And so you see that the most popular soccer clubs or franchise, or however you want to call them, are the ones from Europe, right? Many from Europe, several from Mexico. And then if we start scrolling down only very much lower in the ranking, we start seeing MLS teams, and we start seeing Houston Dynamo. So that sort of translates in the fact that then Houston, it is maybe the soccer city, but it's very much an international soccer city. And so that is in itself um, an opportunity, right? It means that the local soccer can still grow to much higher levels. So think of Houston Dynamo, but it also means that we're very interestingly placed for when all these international visitors are going to come, right? Because we have already the basis here. Now, also for this summer's club competition, I think this can be very interesting because the clubs competition, the Club World Championship is going to be played on the East Coast. So, and some of these teams are going to go play there. So either this means opportunity for travel agencies to start shipping fans over there, but also, again, back to the watch parties, back to marketing activities that you can do based on this information. So this is a glimpse of what can be shown, and I'm looking at the clock, and I see that I did a nice job of, let's say, going at a relatively high pace through the information. So for any of you who would want to know more of any of these sources, or would want to know more on how to use this platform, I mean, feel free to reach out to me, and then we can figure something out, I guess. So from this all, right, so there's a whole bunch of types of strategies that you can think about. This is a summary of, let's say, higher level activities that companies can think about, and it depends on what kind of business you are in. In the coming months, we've set out that we would do every month an event, right, an in-person event. So later this week we are going to talk media. In the next month after that, we'll talk women's soccer. There is a moment we're going to talk about technology. There's a moment where we're going to talk about youth soccer. So there's so many angles to the sport that you as a company can benefit from. And I say company, but I also should say creatives, because again, Team Houston stands for Trade, Enterprise, Advertising, and Marketing, right? I mean, the whole spectrum of groups that we aim to support. So with that, I mean, I'm not going to open it up to questions per se here, because the setup just doesn't allow for that. We have recorded this, so we'll put some snippets out back on online. If you want to have the recording, feel free to get in touch. But the last thing that I'm going to show, and maybe now you want to just yes, it is possible to receive a copy of your slide deck. You'll get even more. Amy, hi there. Thanks for joining us. Um, um, so two presentations, right? So and I hope that works out. So put your phones up and basically get this thing. You'll be asked a few questions. Nothing crazy. The soccer info presentation is the presentation we did in November at the Shell Energy Stadium, which has information on the different tournaments, when they are happening, and all that kind of stuff. So people have asked for that information. And the second one on the right is the Soccer Fan Guide, 138 pages of information that you can nicely do some bedtime reading and start hopefully using. So once again, if there's anything that you would like to see us do, if there's any kind of information that you would like to have us focus on, let us know. I mean, basically, our idea is, I always say we're a bunch of crazies, right? We do this because we have those three passions, right? Passion for soccer, passion for business, and passion for the city. So we're here to help. That is our intent. So if there's particular topics, angles, information, or things that you would like us to focus on, let us know. And with that, I think we have come to the end of this session. I hope it was worthwhile, and I hope also that the information that you'll download, and I'll put the code back up here. Let's see, there you go. So I'll leave this on for a moment, so you can all get your opportunity to download it. And thank you very much for attending, and let us know how we did and what you'd like to hear more from us. Thank you.